Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are hopping directly into this VOD of my Week 2 World Cup match against Fernando Castillo of Panama. The set went on for quite a while, so we're just jumping straight in and skipping the standard intro. This match was also actually casted on the official Victory Road channel, so if you prefer to listen to their amazing commentators, I'll be linking to that in the description below. Also, while I generally like to keep my World Cup teams private, this week I chose to just bring my squad from Secaucus since it has a great matchup into the Rinya Sun team that my opponent brought last week. So I'll be including a link to my team report video in the description where you can hear about all my spreads in detail in addition to receiving a rental code and paste for it. This is my first time actually playing with the team on this channel, so should be good to see. Anyway, it looks like we're gonna be getting into the games in this VOD now. So let's talk about that. Let's jump right ahead. And actually, one of the benefits of it being a VOD is that I can just skip. So my opponent took a second to actually confirm their team. Great. So as you can see, they actually brought a Lunodon team, not Rinya, unfortunately for me. But luckily, I do have a game plan into Lunodon since I had to have game plans for pretty much everything going into a regional. So the way I handle this kind of team is with a Zacian and Whimsicott lead, with Kyogre and Incineroar in the back. Sometimes Thundurus can come too if they have a Charizard, in this case they do not. So this gives me the ability to taunt a Trick Room while also having immunity to Sleep Powder on Whimsicott, so you can go for Protect Taunt. It's generally very safe into like a Venu Lunala lead, for example. We also have the ability to swap in Kyogre for Weather Control and Intimidate Groudon with Incineroar. And of course, Throat Chop on Incin is absolutely huge since my opponent's team likes to set Trick Room, so I can turn their speed control against them with like a slow dark type that does 4x damage to Lunala as long as I can break that Shadow Shield. So again, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead here because my opponent took a little time to lock in their lead, if I recall. Let's go ahead and see. Yeah, their name is Nano. Alright, jumping right in. I go with a Zacian Whimsicott lead into their Porygon 2 and Lunala lead. This is actually very tricky because both of my opponent's Pokemon can set Trick Room here. So what I choose to go for here is Taunt into the P2, and then I decide to try to break Lunala's Shadow Shield with the Behemoth Blade. This felt like a decent play since Lunala often carries Protect, but my risk-reward ratio here is a bit iffy because Protect Trick Room would be a pretty hard read on my opponent's part, so I could have either doubled Lunala or reversed my targets with a Sacred Sword, for example, both of which probably would have been better. But this wasn't a completely terrible play. It was just somewhat all or nothing, I suppose. We can go ahead and see why I feel that way once my opponent goes ahead and makes their selection. And yeah, as you can see here, they go ahead and withdraw P2 and send out their Incin. So Whimsicott's Taunt will bounce harmlessly off of Incineroar due to Prankster moves not working on Dark types. Even if they did, it wouldn't be that huge of a deal for my opponent, but they now even have Parting Shot as an option. I go for V-Blade into Lunala. A, it's down to neutral instead of +1, and B, it is through a Shadow Shield. So still considerable damage considering those two factors, but Trick Room easily goes up. And now I've got a, a somewhat neutered Zacian and a Whimsicott who can do absolutely nothing here. So what I decide here is that I need my Incineroar in to go for that Third Chop under Trick Room. And as for Zacian, I guess I'm just worried about Fake Out plus Moongeist Beam, something along those lines. So I go for a Protect here. This is once again just kind of bad risk management on my part. Like, if we think about it really well, while Incineroar would take both Flare Blitz and Moongeist Beam really well, it will go down to a Meteor Beam. Whereas Whimsicott has a Sash, so it would only go down to a Double In, and I don't even really care about it now that Trick Room is up. So the better move here would have been to swap Incin into the Zacian slot, since Meteor Beam is unlikely to go into it, and then taunt Lunala to prevent it from protecting against my Throat Chop on the following turn. As it is, my opponent made a very good move here. They and just doubled into the Incin slot, so they cover a. If Whimsicott stays in, they still kill it even through a Sash, which would have been the better situation for me had I just let it happen. And if Incin swaps in, as I did, Meteor Beam just takes it out immediately. +1 rock move, especially against my physically defensive Incin. That critical hit absolutely didn't matter. My opponent did not need it. That was a guaranteed OHKO. So now I'm in an absolutely terrible position. The game is actually pretty much already lost at this point. However, I decide to bring out my Kyogre, as this is kind of my last ditch attempt to pull back into it. So this is a pretty terrible position, though. We have 3 more turns of Trick Room, as you can see here. And this Incin can easily Parting Shot away from my type advantage with Kyogre. And Lunala puts on immense pressure with that +1 and Dynamax still available to them. So while I know Parting Shot is coming here, I realize I need to do some damage. So what I do is I Geyser and Behemoth Blade the Incin slot, because I'm pretty sure it's going to Parting Shot, but this would cover it not Parting Shotting, and it would also potentially take out whatever swaps into that slot. My thought was probably that it would be Groudon. Anyway, we now have 2 Dynamax animations about to come out, both their Lunala and my Kyogre, so I'm going to go ahead and skip right through those, which is another benefit of this being a VOD. Alright, and yeah, they go for Parting Shot. So, our Kyogre is now at -1. They almost certainly have Groudon in the back, so it's going to be -1 without weather control if they so choose to go that way. But they do bring up P2. Now, not really the end of the world. I get Intrepid Sword, really not relevant unless they have a physical attack, which I don't think they do. But yeah, they go for Max Phantasm into my Zacian at +1 to so much damage. We live on 2. That's really good information to have for the rest of the set, but not great to happen right now. Now, Geyser at -1, but still in the rain, is going to go into this P2 here. And it does a little over 50%, so not bad, but now we need our Zacian to bring it down, and the fact that we've taken an Intimidate makes that really questionable. And yeah, we just barely missed this KO. We could have gone for Sacred Sword because we knew they had P2, but I really was expecting the Groudon to have like that double whammy of -1 and weather control. But regardless, so from here, I know Zacian can't take another max move, even through Protect, so I swap it into Whimsicott to hopefully stall out the remaining 2 turns of Trick Room with its Sash. And then I also really want to taunt P2 to prevent another Trick Room from going up, so that's another reason to swap it in. I also expected P2 to go for Recover, so I target Lunala instead of it. Now, this is a pretty major oversight. For those who aren't aware, right now P2 within the Series 12 metagame pretty much only carries a single set, and it's almost certainly what this set is here. It's a Trick Room, Foul Play, Recover, and Eerie Impulse, which it has speed control under Trick Room, so it's able to just put a -2 on my Kyogre. Would have been great had I targeted the P2 there, because Whimsicott does get taken down to its Sash, so we still have the ability to taunt here. But yeah, not great, and now you can see the saddest Max Geyser and Rain go off with this Lunala. Lunala is very bulky, it's Dynamax, and we're at -2, so very little damage considering what that animation usually means for my opponents. So despite all my questionable plays in this game, I think this is the one that actually lost it for me. So I expected the recovery yet again now that my Kyogre was thoroughly neutered by Eerie Impulse. There's probably not much reason to do it again. So I decided to swap out my Kyogre to reset the boosts and go for Taunt on P2. Now, the swap I actually think was a great idea because it's the last turn of Trick Room, but what I should have really done is taunted the Lunala so that it couldn't go for Protect on a later turn because it is also a Trick Room setter. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and see how this plays out now. Actually, I'll just go ahead and say it because I have thoughts on this one. So my opponent actually reads my play here to some degree. They read that I'm staying in with Whim by attacking with both of their Pokemon. They don't just read that I'm staying in, they read that I'm going to taunt. So they don't go for Recover or Eerie Impulse, they just go for the Foul Play. And this makes sense because both Whim and Zacian have very low health. But even if they had gone for Recover with, like, obviously you can just say I should have made this play because my opponent made that play, right? But with the benefit of hindsight. But even had they gone for the Recover, that would mean that one of my Pokemon would survive. So I'd either have Zacian's power with Trick Room gone, or I'd have Whimsicott's Helping Hand, and that would help take care of P2's recovered HP. So had I taunted the Lunala and swapped out Kyogre, then I would have been in a much better position because I could kill the Lunala and prevent Trick Room from going up. Now, Trick Room is over here, so, but I am in a 4v1 situation with my full health Kyogre, which is something. But at this point, I kind of just have to hope that my opponent messes up. And I really only have one play in this scenario, and that is to just go for a water spout, right? But my opponent makes the absolutely correct play here, as we'll see in just a moment. Yeah, and they go for Protect on Lunala, exactly what I was saying there. So what they're doing here is sacking the P2. Water Spout obviously kills it from this range, but what's going to come in now is, well, we've already seen the Incineroar, or they could bring out what was almost certainly Ground onto the back, right? To just, now they can have weather control for the rest of the game. Yeah, we'll see here in a second, and yeah, they bring out Incineroar. So from here, their play is very obvious. They can go for Fake Out, then Trick Room, then they can go for a +1 Moongeist Beam and Parting Shot out into Groudon to make my attacks do nothing with the Sun. At this point, I just decide to forfeit. And the reason for that, I mean, obviously I could have just played it out. Maybe they make a mistake. But I actually only showed Max Geyser and Water Spout at this point in the set. So I was hoping that maybe I could trick my opponent. Like, I don't want to reveal my set, or at least like get rid of all doubt as to what it is, right? You could probably make the assumption that it's Mystic Water like it is, but maybe they think I'm AV, maybe they think I have access to Thunder or something, you know, which might discourage Venusaur. You know, I want to just keep some air of mystery there. There was no way I was winning this set, and I already knew all of Lunala's moves, so there was very little information to be gained. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump straight into the next one. For team preview, not much to say here. I decided to go with the same 4. Reason for that being basically what I've been saying this whole video so far is that it wasn't the Pokemon choices that I made, it was the choices I made throughout the battle. I made bad moves, I made bad reads. It was all of those moves that I made, I think they all work in some universe, right? They weren't completely nonsensical, but they were really poor risk management. So we're just going to try to play it a lot better this time around. Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump straight back into the battle. My opponent took almost up to the timer. And as you can see this time, they decided to switch it up, actually, by going for Incineroar and Lunala. Just an even more guaranteed Trick Room lead. They decided they didn't want to go with the 50-50 they did in Game 1, and just go for something that can guarantee them a Fake Out and a Trick Room. Which totally makes sense, and they also, you know, just have the same scary pressure of a Meteor Beam into a potential Incineroar switch. But I think they're going for Trick Room here. And so, despite losing my Incineroar to a similar move in Game 1, I decide to swap it into the Whim slot and go ahead and attack and break the Shadow Shield with Zacian. Reason for this being is that I am just predicting a Fake Out plus Trick Room. I have already revealed that my Whimsicott is both Focus Sash and has Taunt, so that seems like a very appealing play to my opponent, and I kind of have to. You do have to make some form of reads in this matchup in particular. So yeah, Incineroar comes in, we put an Intimidate on their Incineroar. This is also big because should they choose to go for Flare Blitz or something into Zacian, that severely hampers that. But yeah, they go for Fake Out just as predicted. Our Zacian gets the same B-Blade it got off in Game 1, Turn 1. It's a neutral, but it still does a significant amount of damage, and more importantly, it pops his Shadow Shield. But they go for Trick Room, so this is fantastic because my Incineroar now threatens that ×4 Throat Chop under Trick Room, which means it should underspeed the Lunala. So what I do here is I decide to obviously target Lunala with a Throat Chop, and then I swap Zacian into Kyogre for a couple of reasons. First off, this will take a potential Flare Blitz into the Zacian should they choose to go that route. They also haven't seen my Incin go for a Dark move yet, but even if they predict it with a Protect and Parting Shot, Kyogre will seriously disincentivize their Incin from swapping back in to intimidate me again. Now, lucky for me, they did not suspect my Dark move, and instead just went for Throat Chop into my Incin with their slow Incin to attempt to stop me from Parting Shotting, but Throat Chop goes into Lunala, gets that ×4 effective damage. It was a crit. I don't think it... maybe that was obscenely bulky. I haven't even calculated this roll, but ×4 with that much chip and no Shadow Shield, I'm pretty sure that crit was unnecessary, so feel very good about that. So we're in a great position compared to Game 1, but Groudon comes out, takes control of the weather, so not even close to over yet, and Trick Room is up, so that's not great for us. Now, sadly, my opponent's Throat Chop prevents me from using Parting Shot, so I'm forced to hard switch my Incin out into Whimsicott, who is basically useless to me now that Trick Room is up, so I might as well use it as a sacrifice target. Now, speaking of Trick Room, I decided to protect with my Kyogre since neither it nor Zacian will take a Quake particularly well without a Protect, and I need to stall the remaining 3 Trick Room turns. So I think I've just been kind of talking through my thought process, and Rowan at the time, it took a little bit to make these moves, but yeah, we go ahead and make these swaps. Now my opponent actually maxes Ground here, which I don't think I'm gonna speed past it. We're gonna talk about this instead. This is actually great for me because now they're not going to want to swap out a potential Intimidate when I bring Instant back in. So yeah, that's very nice for me. They're burning their max at the same time as this Trick Room means that if I can stall it out, I'll be in a great position. Protect comes out from Kyogre, and even better for me, the Insant's Parting Shot goes into that Protect, so that is great. Now Groudon goes for a Quake into what was once Incineroar, but is now Whimsicott, so we take that pretty well too, which I'm a big fan of. So we're doing a solid job of stalling this Trick Room so far, but they still have 2 more turns of max, so it's by far not over yet. So here's where I think I got a bit greedy. Whimsicott doesn't apply any pressure, and Kyogre just protected, so I assume that they're going to double my Kyogre slot. I swap Whimsicott for Incineroar to get Intimidate down, and then I max Kyogre and go with a max Geyser to take back Weather Control, while my opponent has their Weather Control stuck in Dynamax. You know, it does seem like they'd most likely go for Parting Shot in this scenario, but just taking back Weather Control with Kyogre would be very big, especially with Groudon's physical attack hopefully neutered here. You know what? This time we are just going to skip through the Dynamax animation. Kyogre, big ol' ball, boom. Okay, great. So you can see here, Incin predictably went for Parting Shot, absolutely the right play. This is where things start to take a turn for the worse for me, because that Parting Shot goes out into Venusaur. Even worse for me, this Groudon now goes for Quake, not into Kyogre, as I predicted it would, but into Incineroar. I guess they really did want the Whimsicott gone. It kind of makes sense because they were hiding that Venusaur. They didn't want Taunt coming out into it. Luckily, we do have the Shuka Berry, so we will take the -1 Quake pretty well here. But here's where things get really hairy. You're going to see my Max Geyser in Sun, -1, goes into the Grass-type Venusaur, who doesn't have bad special bulk, so it pretty much barely tickles it. Now, that would be one thing if I just didn't do much damage, right? But what's really bad is that now I have changed the weather what I thought would be a helpful way, but no, because now Venusaur will underspeed my Kyogre. My Kyogre is faster than any timid Venusaur. So yeah, now they threaten Sleep Powder into me too under this Trick Room. Really not great. So from here I could go for Fake Out into Venusaur and Hailstorm, but that would lose me my Incin, and maybe not even kill because Kyogre is at -1 special attack, and Venusaur just got a Quake boost, and it would probably get another Quake boost. So instead, what I decided to use Trick Room to allow my Incin to safely Parting Shot out, and then go for a Max Guard with Kyogre fearing the Sleep Powder. We go for this Parting Shot, we put Groudon down to -2, which, really big deal, that's great. And what we do from here is we bring in Whimsicott. Now, this makes sense, right? I expect a Quake. It probably will kill, but maybe not, actually. With one more Intimidate drop onto it, actually 2 since Whimsicott took the last Quake, it should take the Quake. However, my opponent makes a fantastic read and goes for Steel Spike into the Incineroar slot. So even with all that work Incin did to debuff their Groudon, Whimsicott still goes down, and on top of that, they get defense boosts, which are going to be very useful for them against my Zacian that I have in the back, and they know I have it in the back. At least they did go for the Sleep Powder, so the Max Guard wasn't a total waste. But, you know, Fake Out Hailstorm would have been way better had I been able to make that. Anyway, so from here, things do start to look up for us, though. My opponent's Dynamax is about to be over once the animations are done, and so is their Trick Room. Far more importantly, so is their Trick Room. So, from here, I'm not worried about -2 Groudon's offensive output at all. So what I decided to do is double their Venusaur with Behemoth Blade and Geyser. This covers for a potential Incineroar switch. Also gambling that they won't carry Protect on Venusaur, which is a big deal. Some people do run both Protect and Sleep Powder, but I think it is still relatively rare. You can only take one or the other and just accept that Sleep Powder will give you max guard if you really need it. But yeah, this will also potentially cover for the possibility that Behemoth Blade isn't enough to take out Venusaur, because they do have the option to swap in an Incin, and they got themselves a Steel Spike boost. So yeah, all very relevant. Let's see how that plays out now. Something to note that even though Kyogre is still at -1, we do have the Rain this time, so a Geyser into a Venusaur would do a little more damage than the really pitiful output we saw last time. Okay, so no Incin switch. This is indeed a +1 D-Blade into their Venusaur, which is great. See that go off, and it does just barely miss the KO. Now, I would have loved to get this -1 Geyser and Rain onto the Groudon now that the match is over, but I'm really happy that I doubled into the Venusaur because now we don't have to worry about any potential Sleep Powder stuff. They do go for the Precipice Blades, and honestly it does more indization than I had hoped it would, but you know, super effective, and that's -2, so still pretty good. We're in a really good spot. This is completely manageable. My opponent should only have 2 Pokemon left, I believe, at this point. So it's just a matter of playing out our endgame properly. Something to note that Zacian has been intimidated and Kyogre has been parting shotted, so it's not absolutely over yet, especially because their Groudon has so many special defense boosts, but their Groudon is also weird. So what we do here is I decide to restore Zacian's Intrepid Sword boost by swapping into Incineroar on my side, and then I protect with Kyogre, predicting the pretty obvious fake out that Incin would probably be going for here. There's also just really no reason not to, like no matter what they do with Incin. You know, this just gets an Intimidate down, gets Zacian back to full strength, and Kyogre is free to attack on the following turn with another turn of Rain. So my opponent does go for Fake Out into Kyogre, but then, as I recall, we get some more luck that we really didn't need, just like that crit earlier in the game, with a P-Blades miss onto Incin. Zacian would have absolutely cleaned up just fine at this point, but I'll happily take this too. From here, we just Fake Out Groudon and go for a Water Spout. Groudon may have the Quake boost, but Incin does not, so even at -1, this Water Spout should easily take it out from this range. Well, this range is full health, but it's in range. So it does indeed, and now we're at this this very nice 3-to-1 situation. From here, +1 Zacian should easily take it out, especially after another turn of Water Spout damage. So there's no reason to throw. We just sack one or both of our Pokemon here. We go for the Water Spout. It should do about the same amount of damage as the first time because Rain is gone, but it is single target. And then, you know, we kind of hope for a Keyblades miss, but my opponent actually does double connect, and even at -2, Incin is damaged enough to go down to the super effective attack. Oh, it was a crit. Maybe we would have survived. I don't think so, though. More importantly, though, Kyogre took very little because it's a -2, because that was a -2 Keyblades. So now Zacian comes in, and we just have the obvious. So that should take us into game 3. The set was honestly a nail-biter even at this point, and we still got another game. And this, it's just a no-brainer. I think we just double attack here. So we can see that real quick, and then I'm going to go ahead and skip directly into game 3. Awesome. Yeah, so no need for any of that. Honestly, the last few turns were probably a mistake, but maybe they were gathering some kind of information. Yeah, so let's skip right ahead over to a team preview, and once again, I go for exactly the same 4. I decided to just trust in my game plan and take these. I proved last game that I absolutely can win with these mons. I just do have to make the correct plays. As an aside, I'm really just a fan of taking the same lead in multiple games of a set, not necessarily all 3, but at least 2 of them, and choosing different opening moves, because I just feel that it's more unpredictable to have the same Pokemon and do something different every game than it is to make the obvious play with a different set of leads, right? Anyway, just kind of rambling. Let's skip ahead into the game. I believe my opponent took a little while to choose their 4 on this as well. So this time, my opponent decided to stick with their lead from last game. they lost their Lunala early last game. So what I thought to myself is I don't want to give them the chance to read an Incineroar switch. I got them pretty well, like having them set Trick Room for me and then them not seeing Dark coming. They're probably not going to fall for it again. So instead what I decided to do here is to call them out on not going for the obvious play this time. Last time they went for that fake out Trick Room. This time I'm going to call it they're not going for the fake out, and I'm going to go for the taunt into Lunala. And then I go for the Sacred Sword into Incin. In retrospect, I think a B-Blade into Lunala to break the Shadow Shield might have been a little better, because even though I can do it later, it just does a decent amount of chip too. So it's something to consider. But I think this play is fine. It is very much a hard read in a game 3, so, you know, it's a level of risk that you might not feel comfortable going for, but again, like, Series 12 has a lot of this very polarized kind of plays, and it paid off for me this time. They did not go for the fake out. We get the Sacred Sword off into Incin, you get some valuable information that even at neutral, Sacred Sword is a 2-hit KO fairly comfortably, and they do go for this Meteor Beam into the Whimsicott slot, so they were 100% predicting the Incin switch. Now, I do get a bit of good fortune here with the Meteor Beam missing. I don't think it super mattered because I do have Sash, so I'd still be fine. But it definitely makes a difference, right? It would have freed them up for different plays in the following turns because they only need one hit to take out my Whimsicott. But anyway, they go for Parting Shot into Zacian, and then I believe they bring out Groudon at this point. Yes. So that is, even though I got that turn right to some degree, it's still not amazing for me because now they have both their restricteds out and a +1 Lunala, and my restricted is at -1. It's taking 2 attack drops. So what I do here is I go for a Moonblast into Lunala. I know I'm faster, so I can definitely break their Shadow Shield with that. And then I swap Zacian into Incineroar. I want to stop the attack drops, or get rid of the attack drops, intimidate their Groudon, and then hopefully take either a Phantasm or a Moongeist Beam pretty well. That seems like the play into Zacian right now. They would have to make a very hard read to Rockfall it. Don't see it happening. But yeah, we'll see here. We bring in the Incin. So unfortunately, several unfortunatelies here. So they now, right after I set the Intimidate with my Incineroar because Zacian swaps out faster than Groudon does, yeah, they swap out their Groudon. So they avoid the Intimidate drop and they get their P2 in. Even worse for me is that they manage to trace Prankster. That is awful because that basically invalidates the good play I made turn 1. Even though I was able to taunt their Lunala and stop them from getting Trick Room up, now it doesn't even matter because they have access to Eerie Impulse with Prankster. So my Kyogre is effectively useless so long as that continues on. And then the final, unfortunately, of this is, so I do get this little Moonblast off. It does a tiny bit of chip, but more importantly breaks the Shadow Shield, but they Rockfall into my Whimsicott. That was a great play because it's going to set the sand and kill me through my Sash, and then allow their P2 to go untaunted. Even if they had made an amazing read and killed Incineroar with a Rockfall into a Zacian slot, I still would have been able to taunt and prevent the Eerie Impulse. So this was a really bad turn for me, despite turn 1 being so great. So from here, despite my opponent now having access to Prankster Eerie Impulse, I decide I need to bring out Kyogre. I have to take a risk, and what I suspect is that my opponent is likely to take down Incin with a Rockfall here. And I think that that is an acceptable compromise. And I really sit on this Zacian here, but I'm 90% sure that I brought Kyogre. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So yeah, what I predict my opponent is going to do here, both at the time and now, is that I think they're going to go for a Prankster Eerie Impulse with the P2. They have been gifted that 50-50 roll. They would be silly not to take it. And then they're going to go for Rockfall into Lunala. That kills my offensive output, and Rockfall with Lunala into Incin. Kills my offensive output, gets rid of my support option. Incin is probably my best offense into Lunala if Trick Room is up, but thanks to my own doing, it is not. So kind of worst of all worlds for me here. What I decide to go for is Fake Out with Incin. We're going to sack it into a potential Rockfall, and then we're going to go for Water Spout with Kyogre. I think I'm currently hovering over this with Geyser, but I decided I need damage into both targets. So I go for a Fake Out and a Water Spout. I am faster because Trick Room is gone, so we prevent the Eerie this turn, and then we get the big spout off. I could have gone for Geyser into the P2, and actually in retrospect it probably could have killed. Maybe that was the play, honestly, but this is what I went for at the time. Spout doing that big damage into Lunala actually does come into play as well, so I'm not actually sure of which was the more optimal play here. But yeah, so Ensign goes down. We've done big damage to both, but P2 still, of course, threatens that priority move, which will cut my special attack in half. So not great. So here's what we go for here. We bring out Zacian. There's no other play for that. So what I decide to go for is a Protect on Kyogre and a Sacred Sword too. Now here's my thinking. I know that my Zacian is calced to take a +1 Max Phantasm from the most common Lunala spread 90% of the time. I also know that I did just barely take one in game 1, so that that means that's what I have to bank on, right? I have to assume that they're going for an Area Impulse and a Phantasm. So we go for Protect. They do indeed go for Area Impulse. We call this one correctly. And then we get the Sacred Sword, which will take out the P2. So now everything comes down to this. They target Kyogre, that would be amazing. More likely they're going to go for Zacian, and they do with that +1 Phantasm. But as long as our Pal holds, we're still in this game, and it does. We survive with 11 HP, and our Steel typing allows us to not take any damage from the Sand Chip, so we are still just about holding on. Something to consider is that I still have my Dynamax. Trick Room is not up. And we've got both our restricteds on the field. So that is very good. What's not very good is that now that their Dynamax is over, the taunt that I set on turn 1 is also going to expire. And they bring out this Instant, which both intimidates Zacian and puts fake out pressure onto it. It's pretty obvious that I have to max Kyogre at this point. So yeah, that's not ideal for me in this situation. So I decide that once again I have to make a read. The obvious play here for me is to protect Zacian and Geyser the Lunala because of that fake out pressure. However, if they were to swap Groudon into the Instant slot, Lunala would easily be able to live the Geyser and Sun and then set Trick Room because, as I said earlier, the taunt has just expired. So therefore, I decide to make this one last big read and double the Lunala with both Geyser and Behemoth Blade. Now, this was because it was a read. However, I do think it was a good play even beyond the read had I called this wrong and they had gone for the fake out. At least as long as the Geyser is able to take out Lunala in the sand. That one is iffy, but I kind of have to go for it, right? Because I think Max Kyogre could handle Groudon and Instant together, so long as it's Dynamaxed and in range, which it would be in that scenario if Trick Room doesn't go up. Luckily, we got it right, though, and they swap Instant into Groudon, so now we have the double up going into Lunala, and we have speed control. So even with its bulk, it is at half HP, its Shadow Shield is gone. I think it's very important to remember that I had to go for that Water Spout earlier in the game instead of a Geyser on P2 to get us into this game board. Now Beyblade comes out, and it actually takes out Lunala from this range, so it's possible we didn't need to get it there, but I'm pretty happy with that, because with Lunala down, Geyser now goes into Groudon, and even in the sun, it's really not good. So from here, the game is pretty much over, but to be honest, I almost throw it. So just Instant comes out, gets that Intimidate onto Zacian, not amazing. I make the obvious Protect play on Zacian to prevent Fake Out from hitting me, but fearing a Protect from Groudon, I decide to Geyser the Instant slot. This is a terrible choice for two reasons. First, they've already revealed Max Steel Spike on their Groudon, which means they're almost certainly AV and therefore cannot Protect. Second, though, I could have easily just gone for Protect and Max Guard, like the absolute safest play, because I have my Dynamax and they don't, and this would guarantee the double KO on the following turn, because I already know that my neutralization does more than 50% to their Instant, and then if they Protect Groudon, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? But luckily for me, the play I made still works out. They do go for that fake out into Zacian's Protect, so that's good. We get to prevent a potential single target Precipice Blades from coming out. My Geyser, obviously, Oko's instant from this range, but now we get to see the big however. This Groudon's P-Blades, even though it is the normal double target, does a disturbing amount of damage into my Dynamax Kyogre, and the reason for that is the Phantasm drop that we took earlier in the game. So I don't think a crit takes us from there, but I think it's very close, and I think that we really just didn't need to do that. And the other thing to consider here is that if you take a look at this B-Blade, I think I've taken 2 Intimidates at this point, not just 1, so yeah, if you take a look, this actually doesn't kill, so if a crit actually could have taken out Kyogre, then I would have lost this game, assuming B-Blades hit. So that, that would have been unfortunate. Anyway, we do take it out from here. The game's over. That wraps up the set. Really good games of Fernando and all of Team Panama. Team India took the week 7-1, just like we did last week against Norway, so we're guaranteed a qualifying spot. Awesome job to all my teammates as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. So until next time.